Hi, welcome to the free video course teaching the fundamentals of computer-aided design. My name is Jason and I'm the creator of Engineering for Beginners. I'm an engineer by trade with over 20,000 hours of CAD experience. However, you don't have to be a professional to use CAD. These days there are a few great free options to choose from if you want to start using CAD software, and if you take some time to learn these fundamentals, you'll be on your way to turning your ideas into reality. In this video, we're going to go through a brief introduction and discuss some background information that will help you understand how to create a successful design. We'll be using Sketchup design software, so we'll cover where to go to download that and also how to install it. It's important to take a little bit of time to discuss the two main methods to use when designing, so we'll do that at the end of this video. The next two videos will go into the step-by-step details on how to use the tools and layout of the program, and also walk you through your first design. We'll cover how to create a handy bill of material, or BOM, that is similar to a shopping list so you know exactly what you need to build your design. And finally, I'll show you how to create work instructions for when it comes time to build the coffee table so you can do it right the first time. So before we do anything, let's cover how to get the design software downloaded and on your computer so that we're ready to go when it comes time to design. So the first step will be to open up a web page and navigate to www.sketchup.com. You should see a screen that looks similar to the one shown here, and there should be a button that says something like Download SketchUp. So go ahead and click that. Next, it's going to ask you to fill in some information. You'll see a drop-down menu that has a couple options in it. You're going to want to choose the Personal Projects option, which means that you're going to use the software for personal use and not for business use. They do have a professional version that they ask you to pay for if you're going to be using it for a business or consulting or something like that. So after you've done that, continue to fill in the information that they ask for, and then click the Download SketchUp button to begin the download. After the program downloads, go to your downloads folder or wherever it downloaded to and double click and follow the installation instructions. I'm not going to go through that because it could be unique to depending on what computer and operating system you're using. But if you follow the instructions and follow what it says on SketchUp, the website, you should have no problems doing that. If you do, just let me know and I can help you out. So after you install it, click the icon or double click to run the program, and after you do that, you're going to see a welcome screen similar to the one that you see here. Now there's a couple of different options, and you feel free to go through and explore and kind of see what they have to offer, but when you're ready, you'll see it near the bottom, a menu that says template, and go ahead and click on that. That will bring up a number of options, and what these options are a kind of predefined layout based on what it is that you're trying to do. So you'll see that there are interior design options, there are woodworking options, there's 3D printing options. The main difference between all of these is the units that are used and how they're represented. So for example, you see the one we have selected is 3D printing in inches. And what that means is we'll be working in inches and it'll show up in decimal format, which is the option that I prefer to use. If you're more used to the metric system, feel free to use the 3D printing millimeters. And if you want, take some time and go through the other ones. You may like it better, you may not like it. For example, the woodworking option represents inches in fraction format, which I kind of find to be not as easy to work with and not as exact, so I prefer to use decimal. So for the purposes of this, we're going to use either the 3D printing inches or 3D printing millimeters, depending on what you're more familiar with. So go ahead and select that and then hit Start Using SketchUp. Once you do that, you'll see a screen pop up that looks something like what you see here. It may not look exactly like this because I've got a number of toolbars active that you probably don't have yet. In the next video, I'll go through how to view and activate and deactivate the various toolbars, and I'll also explain kind of what each one does. For now, let's just get to a blank slate So using your mouse, left click on the 3D printer that you see there, and then simply hit the delete key. So now that we have the design software all set up and ready to go, let's take a few minutes to talk about the two major methods that we use to design things. The first method is something I call bottom-up, or the bottom-up approach. So in this method, we start by designing each individual part first as separate files. So in the case of our coffee table, this would be, for example, an individual table leg, or maybe the tabletop. But each of them are individual components at this point. After that, we create a different file, an assembly file, and we load the individual parts into the assembly file. And this is where we would check them for fit or interference and make sure everything lines up okay. Now, if there was anything that was wrong or had to be changed, you would go into the individual part files to make those changes. And then after that, you would update the assembly file or reload the parts and then review them again to make sure that everything is okay. So why would we use this type of approach? Well, for some CAD programs, this is really the only way to work. They're just set up to work this way. One of the good things is that it forces you to keep the parts separated from the assemblies, which reduces the chance of making mistakes. And I think you'll see once we get into the other videos how you can make mistakes by using the other method. Also, one more thing, for this to really work, it helps to have both files open, for example the assembly file and then an individual part file as well, so that you can kind of switch back and forth quickly. Some programs may not let you do that, so you'll have to switch back and forth one at a time, and it can get kind of cumbersome and lengthy. So for me, this isn't really my preferred approach, but as I said, some programs this is the way you have to do it. So now the second method is something I call the top-down approach. So in this method, we start by creating an assembly file first, and all the design is going to happen in this one assembly file. As we go along, we design individual components and then save them out as we go. So an example of our coffee table, we would start in the assembly file and we would design our table leg. Then we would call that a component or a part. Then we would continue on and let's say design the tabletop, and then we would call that one component, and then continue the design one part at a time, and then creating each files as you go along. So why would we use something like this? Well, it can be a lot faster to do this because you're not switching back and forth between individual files. It also is really convenient to be able to use the existing components as you go along in the design. You're not designing one part by itself and then checking it in another file. You're designing a part, keeping it there, and then you can use that part and reference the geometry on it to create your next part. So really I find that it saves time. But as I said earlier, there are some downsides. You can run into issues, and we'll get into that in the other videos. So before we end this video, I just want to say that all CAD programs have this concept of a part and an assembly, unless you're just designing one part and that's it. If you're building it into something larger, then all CAD programs have this idea of an individual part and then putting it into an assembly. And as I mentioned, some programs work better with the top-down, others bottom-up. And no matter which one you decide to use, really the important thing is just kind of understanding how everything comes together. I personally prefer using more of a top-down approach, especially when using SketchUp, because I find that it's just really set up well to do that, and we'll see that in the other videos. So that's all I want to cover in this video. In video 2, we will get started running through the tools and the basics of using the program, and then we will begin doing the actual design of the coffee table.